You're about to tap into the fan's perspective, where all things entertainment are talked about by the fans who love them the most. Now let's dive in with your host, Chris Laporto. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of The Fan's Perspective, courtesy StarsAndCelebs.com, where you can get all of your entertainment news, read some celebrity interviews, play some quizzes, and there's also some other great podcasts available for you. That's StarsAndCelebs.com. Don't forget, all you horror enthusiasts, Chud.com, all your horror news, and also some great podcasts there for you as well to check out. My name is Chris Laporto. I am back one more time. And we are coming to you on SoundCloud. Don't forget now that The Fan's Perspective, is on YouTube. So when you search for that, make sure you hit that subscribe button and click on that bell to stay notified whenever new episodes get loaded onto YouTube. Check us out on Instagram at Fan's Perspective Pod. Stranger Things is finally back. It came back last Thursday, 4th of July. And I watched, along with my guest, and we'll introduce her in a second, but we watched it the entire season in one day because I think we just couldn't turn away from it. It's been like a year and a half, I think, since season 2, and we finally got season 3, and that's what we're going to be talking about today. But first, of course, bringing back my recurring guest, my girlfriend Tara. Tara, welcome back.
Hello, thank you for having me.
Alright, so let's get into these guest questions for you. You're no stranger to this. But Stranger Things, who's your favorite character?
Favorite character? Generally it's 11. I think obviously she's a super strong character, and she's not the greatest at communicating, but I think she's definitely like a loyal friend, and it's definitely somebody you want to have in your corner. And obviously in the situations that these kids find themselves in, she's proven herself time and time again to be super valuable. So I think Elle is like a great character. But for season 3 specifically, as somebody who stepped up, I thought Nancy actually kind of earned her stripes this season, and I thought she was a pretty badass character. She was pretty tough, and so I kind of got to like her a little bit more this season.
Yeah, I don't know if I have, or up until this point, if
you love Steve.
Well, hang on a second. I don't know if up until this point I had a favorite character. I think that I kind of enjoyed most of them, but this season I did kind of gravitate or pick someone who I kind of felt like I liked the most, and that was Steve. I just think he's kind of grown on me, and I enjoy his character, and I like his arc where he went from being like the bully and the douchebag to getting his ass kicked from Jonathan, and now he's like friends with Dustin, and he's always there to help them. In season 2, he was like almost like their protector at some points.
That was me totally being like a jerk, and because I know you hated him before, so I had no idea that you were actually going to turn around and say he was your favorite. So I'm actually pleasantly surprised. I said that to be funny, but turns out I was right.
Well, I don't like bullies, and I don't like characters who treat people however they want because they feel like they can. But Steve's turned the corner, and he's you almost kind of saw him this season kind of take a step back from being like the cool kid that everybody likes to maybe not feeling like he is that way anymore.
The funny thing is that I feel like he got snapped into reality by Dustin of all people. How old are they, 15, 14? And
Steve's like 18.
He has like a kid. Yeah, well, like Dustin's like 13, 14. And he has like basically this like tween telling him like, bro, like you're not in high school anymore, like you should be done with all of this very like shallow nonsense and these social hierarchy type nonsense BS and like live your life, do what you want, like look for substance. And like Steve was like, damn, like I think in the moment he was like, I don't want to hear this, or you're like an infant. But I think as the episodes went on, he actually started to manifest that.
What about least favorite character?
Least in season 3.
In new season 3, or just I guess overall, I mean it's pretty much a recurring cast, so with the exception of some new faces.
It's kind of hard. I guess I don't dislike anyone, but there are like characters who I think are just like there, which is like Jonathan. Like Jonathan, I think if he like got written off,
Jonathan.
I like him. Like so, like I don't want to like say that I don't like anyone, but he's probably like the least kind of important for me.
He didn't have as much of an impact this season, I think, compared to the other two. For me, my least favorite was Barb. And it's because I didn't get the hype. I don't understand. And maybe, if you listeners want to drop some knowledge on me about this, I don't understand why Barb was so popular. I honestly don't
in like
get
2
it.
episodes.
Like she was in 2 episodes. She was killed off. She was a character that was there to be killed off.
Right.
Like she really had no other purpose. So I don't know why people were so obsessed with her.
The few moments she did have, it was like her being like very clingy to Nancy and be like, you better hang out with me. Like you're becoming popular. So like I just feel like there was nothing really redeeming about her outside of her very last moment with Nancy, where she basically was telling her that it wasn't like she wasn't being herself and like she should just like come home with her. Like, but that was like the only redeeming thing about Barb. Like otherwise, she was very much like just filler and had no significance.
And I think.
And even the characters didn't care about her. She died. They cried for like 2 seconds.
Yeah,
no one even knew she was missing for like 4 episodes.
She wasn't an important character at all, and I think maybe the obsession came from, at least from what I heard when, I mean this is going back to season 1, but people just looked at her as just like a regular girl. But I don't get that. Like she wasn't
relatable.
But I mean, is an attractive person not relatable all of a sudden? I mean,
she's not ugly.
I think the stigma was that she wasn't the typical
cookie cutter, beautiful blonde.
She wasn't the typical
babe.
Cookie cutter role, I think, and I think people probably liked that the most. But still, she wasn't. She had no impact on anything. If she was there for the whole season, then maybe I could understand a little bit more. But she wasn't. I don't know. But anyway, moving on from that, I think my least favorite character now is Mike. I found Mike very, very annoying this season. I think his obsession with Elle, and he was very disrespectful to Hopper, and he was becoming like one of those punk teenage kids, and I was just like, he's annoying to me.
I definitely would agree. I think at some point I turned to you and was like, when did Mike become a dick? Like, I think they honestly didn't do a great job of like showing us the transition. Like I feel like at the end of at the end of season 2, he was like general, like nice, easygoing pre-tween, and then like this season comes around, he's like cursing and like laughing at adults, and he told Hopper like you're a piece of shit or something like that. What did he say to him? Remember he thought he lied about his grandmother?
Yeah.
I think he called him a piece of shit, and I was like, wow, like.
But even before that, when Mike and Elle are, and there's going to be spoilers, obviously.
Spoiler alert!
If you haven't watched the season yet, Mike and Elle are making out constantly in Elle's bedroom, and Hopper is clearly uncomfortable with this, and he's trying to tell them to stop, but I guess in a nice way, and they're laughing at him. Mike is whispering in Elle's ear in front of Hopper as he's trying to like be like the parent, I guess.
Right.
And Hopper like kind of snaps and starts yelling at him in the car when he tells him your grandmother, is sick or whatever. But yeah, I was just like, what a little punk! Like,
what a little punk.
Yeah, it
was a crazy turn of events. I feel like I kind of didn't expect, of all people, for Mike to be the kind of jerk of the group. But I didn't really like even that. I still didn't dislike him. And I feel bad even saying Jonathan, because Jonathan is great. He doesn't bother anybody, but I don't know. I can't. I think I'm gonna retract that and say I didn't have a least favorite person. I don't think anyone really got on my nerve. I didn't really complain, and I'm pretty good about finding something that annoys me and like harping on it. But I feel like I was generally pleased with everything.
Another thing too that I noticed with this season, and when we get into our actual review of it in a few minutes, we'll talk more about it. But I feel like every character was dialed down a bit because this is a show that isn't just about the four boys, the friends anymore. It's about all the characters. It's evolved into that. So I feel like obviously Jonathan was more prevalent when Will was missing in the first season,
Right.
but now, and I think they actually spent more time telling other people's stories than focusing on
Right.
Mike and Will and Lucas. Dustin, I feel like they did because I feel like maybe he's the most popular out of the four. I'm talking about like in real
Pop
life.
culture wise, yeah.
Like I actually got to meet Gatton Matarazzo when I was interning at a radio station, and he's a fun little kid. He's just like a normal kid, very much a kid. Didn't have that,
Hollywood attitude.
I'm a star mentality. He was with his whole family. He was promoting his band because he's in a band with his family, and he was just like he was goofing around like a kid would, and I found it refreshing. And
Can we talk about favorite additions? Because Erica was the greatest thing about
Erica was
season.
pretty fun. I'm seeing
She
a lot.
was fantastic.
I'm seeing a lot of things on social media that say people are saying that Erica is like everyone's new favorite.
What did
She
she
was
say?
pretty
She's
funny.
like, you can't have America without Erica or something
Yeah.
like that. She is like, she was just like, the very first time. First of all, I didn't remember the actress. I don't know if it's the same actress who has played Lucas's sister, the last two seasons. But that very first encounter in the mall, I was like, who is this badass little girl? When she's like, shut up, nerd, or whatever. She's like arguing with him. I'm like, who is this badass little girl in the mall? I was like, is that his sister? Like, they have to know each other. And then as we learn that she is related to Lucas, like, I just, like, loved her even more. I was like, this girl is bad. She's getting all these free ice cream samples. She got a lot of attitude. She seems to have, like, a little gaggle of girls following her everywhere. I thought she was so refreshing and, like, brought so much fun to those pretty serious scenes with that group. Robin and
Oh yeah.
And Steve and Dustin.
And she was also pretty smart for a little girl too. So for somebody her age, she was pretty smart. But yeah, she was definitely a fun new character. I kind of liked Robin too.
Yeah, Robin's cool.
Maya Hawke, Ethan Hawke's daughter, and Uma Thurman's daughter. Yeah, I thought she was fun. I don't know if there was any other new ones besides
Susie. Hello.
Oh, Susie. Yeah.
is
Well, I mean,
fantastic.
she didn't come to the last episode, but she was still kind
She's
of.
talked about the entire
She's
time.
talked about the whole time, and it was kind of funny at the end there.
It was great.
Carrie Elwes was new to the show, playing the mayor, Mayor Klein. And I know you had an upsetting moment, but we'll talk about that later on.
Oh yeah.
So, when did we like finally watch Stranger Things? And obviously it was season 1, but it wasn't right away. I feel like we kind of heard about the hype and we were like, let's check it out.
Maybe like a month or two.
Yeah. It definitely wasn't right away that we watched it.
Yeah.
Because I remember seeing it, and I think I remember seeing more of it when it started to really pick up steam and become popular. And then I was like, let's check this out. But would you say that Stranger Things is the best Netflix original show?
Currently, yes, probably. I would have said Orange is the New Black if you asked me about 4 years ago, maybe. But that show has kind of lost its luster, so I think Stranger Things is pretty much holding on to that title at the moment.
I mean, and Netflix has so many, but Stranger Things has had 3 really strong seasons. And it's really all opinion and just taste, I guess. But, like I loved Daredevil, but Daredevil was canceled. The Punisher I thought was okay. Yeah, all the Marvel shows were like Iron Fist started out bad, but I thought the second season was good. I do enjoy Jessica Jones. We didn't really watch all of House of Cards.
I think my second favorite after that would be Sabrina.
Yeah, Sabrina's fun.
Us Not Us, You.
Yeah,
Which is
You,
now
which is
gonna
now
be
a Netflix
now a
show.
Netflix show.
But I think I would, if I had to pick one, I'd probably say that Stranger Things is probably the best, and definitely their most popular.
13 Reasons Why is probably a good contender.
Yeah.
Um,
I mean, 13 Reasons Why was a good show, and there's so much controversy around it that I feel like, it's hard to talk about that show without talking about how controversial it was.
right.
Yeah, I think I would have to say that Stranger Things is probably the best show. All right, so a little bit of a history of Stranger Things and where it came from and how it became a thing, how it got into production. So the Duffer Brothers, who were the creators, were actually mentored by M. Night Shyamalan while working on episodes of Wayward Pines. It's a show that I didn't watch. I think it's another one of those weird supernatural shows that lasted 2 seasons before it got canceled. The Duffer Brothers gained all their experience from working on Wayward Pines, and then they started to write the pilot for what would become Stranger Things, but it wasn't originally called that. It was called Montauk, and it was going to be set in Long Island, and it was basically everything that we see in Stranger Things now is what their idea was the whole time. It just had a little bit of a different name, different setting, and it was inspired by all the supernatural classics and was supposed to be a love letter to Steven Spielberg and Stephen King. It was also to involve real world conspiracies and secret government agencies. And the idea, according to what I read, really started with them watching the film Prisoners, which is about parents dealing with the kidnapping of a child and the moral struggles that they went through. Not so much, and Netflix purchased the rights after reading the script for the pilot, so I guess Netflix was just like, we like it, let's just go ahead and do it. But when you watch Stranger Things and you read the original pitch for the show, nothing really different except the name and the setting. I mean, that's just a brief history of the show, but what about the setting? I think one of the things that makes Stranger Things popular is the fact that it takes place in the 80s. It is a love letter to all of the great 80s classics that we know: Ghostbusters,
E.T., Goonies.
The Goonies, Dungeons and Dragons. The soundtrack is great. I remember when the trailer for season 2 came out with Thriller, and people went nuts for it.
I think one of the best trailers that, I'd say top 5 trailer. I can't think of, I don't want to, rush into it and say it's the best, but I'd say top 5 trailers for anything I've ever seen.
So, I mean, I was born in 85, so I grew up during the 90s, but I was still exposed to a lot of the 80s culture because my mom was young. So I definitely think that that's one of the things that makes Stranger Things resonate so much with fans. It being set in the 80s, I just think is really cool because as far as my opinion goes, all of the best horror and supernatural stuff and even sci-fi stuff came out of the 80s.
Yeah, I think I'd agree with that. Probably. Aliens is 80s, right?
Aliens is 80s, E.T., Nightmare on Elm Street, Friday the 13th, Halloween.
Consider that sci-fi?
Well, it's supernatural horror, sci-fi, because that's what Stranger Things is. It's that type of show. But I don't know, what do you think makes the show so popular with people?
Well, I think there's the nostalgia piece. I think people love being taken back to the 80s. The 80s is probably one of the most universally loved decades. I feel like every other decade has some flaws in terms of either the music was crappy or the clothes was crap or the hair was crappy. But 80s,
there was some crappy stuff going on.
I don't know, but the 80s I feel generally has the best of everything. 80s clothes. If I had to pick a decade to live in, it'd be the 80s probably. They had really good music and everything, so I think the nostalgia piece and people just loving everything that it's referencing is what made people interested in the first place. I think good storytelling. I think it's something different. I think the kids are super cute, talented, relatable. That's a draw. I think it's a mixture of all those things, and at the end of the day, you can have all the references you want, but if the story's not good, if it's not there, then I think that's where you get a problem. And I think they do a good job of spacing it out and making everyone miss it. Like they space it out just enough where like we get to miss it, right? Like it's just enough time where it's like, all right, I'm waiting for us to come back, and the anticipation is really crazy. And so when it does come out, people like us will binge it because we've just been waiting for around 11, 12 months for it to come back out.
What was the deal with because season 2 and season 3 was spread out longer? Because the first 2 seasons came out in the fall.
And Halloweenish, yeah.
Halloweenish. Now this season comes out July 4th. And I know that, the first couple seasons were, I don't know if the first season was based around Halloween. The second season was. This season was based, obviously, during the summertime. What was the actual reasoning for the layover? I mean, is it because maybe the kids have more demanding schedules?
I think it's a mixture of that. I think, because I feel like they, even though we got it just now in July 2019, I feel like they shot this like a year and a half ago. And I think there's always that weird kind of timeline and rush when it comes to child actors because they're growing. Like, they can't have this be the next year because this was only a year later from season 2. And the kids all look 35 now.
They definitely, especially Mike. Like
Finn Wolfhard is like 7 feet tall now. Like, all of them have, I think most of them hit puberty from a voice perspective. All the boys, I think they had deeper voices this time. And when they did that flashback clip of them playing D&D, and you see how, like, they were babies. Like, they look 6 years old. It was, like, kind of weird. It was like, this is only season 3, and they've changed so much. Like, it's a cool little time capsule for them when they get older. They can watch themselves kind of grow up on TV.
Which is why the show can't really go on for much longer. But is there anything about the show? Oh, that's what I wanted to talk about, the monsters.
Yep.
I think the monsters are so original and so cool. Like, the Demogorgon was great. The Mind Flayer in season 2 and in season 3 as well. But I feel like season 3's monster, even though they said it was still the Mind Flayer, was very different. Really, really cool and original monsters that, I mean, I don't scare easily. They were definitely terrifying looking. They
were annoying and awful looking, and I think my biggest problem with this season was it's a little too many creepy crawlies and like things with the skin. I don't like watching things with like animals coming out of skin and like things that look like slime going into people's. It was just like too much icky stuff that was making me itch. Like, that was my biggest complaint about the scene. Like when Elle had that thing in her leg, I just couldn't watch it. I was like, if I see some animal coming out of somebody's leg, I'm going to die. And I was just like, this needs to stop. And the scene went on for, like, 10 minutes. I literally could have painted my entire, like, could have painted all 10 of my nails, and the scene was still going on. So that was, like, my only complaint, like, with the monsters. Like, I think they were cool, and, like, definitely impactful, and, like, I guess I didn't realize they were different, but now talking back, I think obviously they're very different monsters. But yeah, I think it's a nice throwback to all the like weird animals we've seen in the 80s movies. I
also feel like they're so different than anything we've ever seen before too at the same time. So probably for me the best part of this show is the monsters. The Demogorgon itself has become a bit of a thing in pop culture. We see like the little pop figurines of it, and like really, really just cool visual for it. Like the way it looks, the way that its face opens up, and I know you're kind of freaked out by that because it has like all the teeth inside when it opens up. And
I'm not freaked out. It just makes me itch. Like it skews me out, and I don't like it. It's like like I don't want it. Like he looks. There's just so many things going on. He's gross. But they definitely took from Aliens on that one with the little micro mouths that come out. And like do the biting and like punching for it.
Which is probably
from, like miles away.
Like watching this season, every time that happened is probably when I was freaked out the most because, I mean, you talked about you dying before like that. I would just drop dead if something ever came at my face like that to implant something in me.
Disgusting.
That's gross.
It's all of those scenes are disgusting. And like Didn't someone spit something out? Was that last season? Spit
That
out one
was,
of those slugs. It's just
that was Will, but in the last
it's just
season.
fucking nasty. Like I just don't want to see it.
So my favorite part really is the monsters. What about yours? What's your
just favorite aspects?
favorite aspect of the show?
I do love all the references. Like it's just like funny to see like the things that they talk about and like the things that they, like just like all the scenery. Like I just loved like the fact that it's set in the 80s. Like that's fun just in general. But the best part for me, I would say, for this season, I think I liked. I think this was the season of relationships. I loved all the different dynamics. There were so many different kind of relationships that they explored. Like there was like the girl. It was like the girl code and like the girlfriend relationship between Elle and what is her name? Max. So I thought that was good. Like like Elle for a long time had been the only boy, and like she was actually everything she kind of like
Girl.
knew. What? What did I say?
Only girl.
What did I say?
Just call Elle a boy.
Oh shit. Elle, as the only female in the group, she was like getting a lot of her like pop culture references or just like learning how to her social behavior was coming from four idiot boys. And so I think it was good for her to get that like female perspective. So that was cute to see. I think Elle and Mike's awkward relationship was fun to watch only because I thought it was true to life and like how two teenagers like or like like early teens would actually interact with each other and how like kissing is just like the biggest thing you can do and like they're just like so giggly and stupid and naive and it was just cool to see because that's relatable. I think all of us were teenagers before and obviously and had experienced something similar. I think Hopper and what is Winona Ryder's character's
Joyce.
name? Joyce. They were hysterical, and then once they got the Russian, the three of them were just like hilarious. So I loved all that. I loved Bald Eagle, and like that whole group and their little mission that they had. I think it was like my favorite part about the whole season was like they really did a great job of not only telling a story and telling a scary story, but relationships and even I guess you could say the villain of the season, Dacre Montgomery.
Your boyfriend.
Shut up. I love him. Even he got like a little backstory and we got to like understand why he might have been the way he was. I thought it was great in that sense and everyone we got a little deeper with everyone.
All right, we're going to take just a quick break. As usual, it's time for the quiz. But this week is not so much a quiz. It's just a question. And,
ridiculous question.
And, well, it's not ridiculous.
It is.
But I kind of touched on it before. But I want to know from you, the fans, the listeners, what's the deal with Barb? Like, just tell me. Just, like, help me understand why Barb is such a popular character. Like, why is there pop dolls of her? Why are there Halloween costumes of her? Like
Jimmy Fallon dresses up as Barb at least once a week. I feel like.
Yeah, like just explain to me. And listen, I'm not judging or I'm not trying to be disrespectful, but just help me understand what the deal is with Barb. And you can do that at the Fans Perspective homepage at starsandcelebs.com. You can do that on SoundCloud where you're listening to this right now. You can do it at Fans Perspective Pod on Instagram. And you can also do it on YouTube if you search for Fans Perspective. And don't forget to subscribe. While you're doing that, we'll be back in just a sec. All right, so let's continue with our review of Stranger Things. So what is season 3 actually about? Well, it kind of starts out with, and to be honest, I don't even remember where or when the Mind Flayer came back, but all the rats started like blowing up and
which was hysterical,
turning
but scary
into,
at the same time.
Turning into what the Mind Flayer was. And they had suggested that a piece of it kind of stayed behind after Elle closed the portal in season 2. But it possesses Dacre Montgomery's character, Billy. And we kind of find out that its intention is to take over as many people as it can in town so it can kill L, because L is its biggest threat of putting it back in the upside down, I guess, or killing it altogether. But I feel like L's powers definitely grew this season. Like, we saw her really kick a lot of ass.
She was doing some great shit with her powers. Like, I was like,
Yeah.
there were a couple of times I was like, oh shit. Like, when she like picked him up and like slammed him against a wall, she split one in half. She like split his head open.
Mm-hmm.
Like, she was on it. That's why Elle's my number one. Especially when she told him, like, I dump your ass. That's my favorite line. I dump your ass. Oh man, she's so cute.
But yeah, that part, you know, Billy is I guess the villain after the Mind Flayer, and we mentioned Hopper and Joyce.
Oh, she kept saying like she wanted to check the lab, and he was like, it's gone, like we emptied it out.
She wanted to check the lab because the magnets on her fridge fell off. Yeah. Everything was demagnetized, and she felt it had something to do with the lab. Mm-hmm. So they wanted to go back, and they realized that there was some more shady stuff going on there. And then you had Dustin, Steve, and Robin, and Erica also investigating the lab because they had stumbled upon a Russian code when Dustin was trying to contact Susie. And then you have Will, who is getting these kind of like spider sense moments from the Mind Flayer, which set off the rest of the boys to kind of figure out what was going on. At the same time, Mike is going through his relationship troubles, I guess. But this season
so is Lucas, but like in a different way.
But in a different way. It was just like
Mike is literally like heartbroken, and Lucas is like, oh, he's like Max and I broke up 5 times.
5 times.
I just like finesse it. It's fine.
And I felt kind of bad for Will this season because everybody's growing up with him. You know, he very much just still wanted to play Dungeons and Dragons and just hang out in the basement like they used to, and everybody's just growing up and on their own. Not on their own, but just into different things. And he didn't have that, or he wasn't at that level yet. Then you have Nancy and Jonathan, who both work for the Post. And Nancy is investigating this rat phenomena after they got a phone call from some lady about rats. And
she caught one.
They wound up catching one, but it exploded, so they didn't really have it turned into more stuff. They didn't really have the proof. So you have all these kind of different things going on that are all
concurrent storylines.
All concurrent, they're all connected, but we get to see different, all the characters going through kind of different adventures that kind of lead to the same place.
And the crazy thing is that Dustin literally spends no time with his friends. Like,
not until in the first episode, and then the last episode.
First and
I
last,
think that's
exactly, the bookend of the season. Like, he's literally mad at them because.
But I enjoyed it because it felt different. Like, you know, it wasn't another season of all of them, all the boys together going through it. It was them separated, like figuring out their relationship as they get older and going through this new threat at the same time, but experiencing it with not new people, because Steve was a part of it before, so was Jonathan, so was Nancy.
It was like
but spending more time with them. It was like new groups forming.
I would say I also feel bad for Will too. I just feel like, looking back, I'm like very grateful that my friend group, which was like 6 of us, that all of us kind of grew at the same pace, because that would probably suck where, like, you know, you're still wanting to play with Barbies and all your friends want to go on dates with boys. It's just like, that's an uncomfortable feeling. So I did kind of feel bad for Will.
And it's also because of what he went through personally. Like, he probably felt like he missed a lot of time.
Was he gone? How long was he gone? Like a year?
I don't know if it was a year, but it was a long time that he was missing. And, you know, he probably just feels like he missed out a little.
Right. And
just wasn't ready to grow up. But everybody else was.
I did feel like, I think he was justified, but I also feel like when he and Mike had that argument in the garage, I was kind of on Mike's side. Because I feel like it was one of those things where it's like, there's so many things going on right now, and like Dungeons and Dragons is just not important right now. Like, it was just like, it was bigger than that moment.
I don't think it was about them not wanting to play Dungeons and Dragons.
He
just felt like he was losing his friends.
Which I understand to an extent, but I also feel like he was kind of overreacting. Like, he never even, like, talked to them about it. He kind of just, like, flipped out. And, like, even when Mike was trying to explain to him, he's like, dude, like, you're not losing me as a friend. Like, he's like, but did you expect that we would just, like, stay kids forever and, like, live this life? And he's like, yeah. And it was just, like, kind of like one of those things where it's, like, he wasn't trying to, one, convey his own feelings while also trying to understand everybody else's. He was just I felt like he was throwing a tantrum, which...
I don't know if I...
He did. He stormed out, ran out in the rain like a psychopath.
But I think that it had a deeper meaning than just they don't want to play with me. It was, you know,
they
just that feeling of growing apart.
Yeah, he was like that.
And he was afraid of that. He was afraid of them growing apart, which is totally understandable. You know, I can see Mike's side too. Mike was like, "Hey, we're getting older. This is just what happens. It's the way it is." But Will wasn't ready for that, so he didn't want to be alone.
I'm not saying he's not justified. I think his feelings are valid, but I just think he went about it the wrong way. He threw a tantrum versus like talking to his friends.
Yeah, and he even said, he was like, you know, he asked Mike, "Where's Dustin?" Because Mike just like didn't care about anything except Elle. He's like, "Elle dumped me. What does this mean, Sheila? What did I do wrong?" And like, but that's annoying too. Like, I used to have a friend who obsessed over a girl, and it got to a point where like, dude, shut up, like just stop, you know. Yeah, so I mean, I can see the frustration in that where Will's just like, just shut up and be a kid again for a little bit.
I mean, I think they alluded to it a couple of times where like they kept saying like in the first episode like they've been doing this all summer, like all they do is lie. But that last time that they actually showed, I would have done the same thing. Dustin got us climbing this mountain for 5 hours. So he can go walkie-talkie his Mormon girlfriend, Susie, that, as far as we're concerned, doesn't exist. Yeah, I was like, I don't have time for this. It's burning hot. And he has them hiking with equipment for 5 hours up a hill. Like, I would have been like, oh, I don't feel good. My mom is calling me, something. I would have done the same thing. I would have lied about anything to get out of that. That sounds like an awful situation. And then the people who did go with him were sitting up there listening to him going, Susie, come in, over. Susie, come in, over, for like hours. Because the sun had set and it was like 10 o'clock at night. So I am down with Elle and Mike for ditching that last time. Because that was bullshit. I would have been like, oh, I'm coming with y'all.
I side more with Will a little bit. But,
I sympathize with both. I just think he went about it a little cray, but whatever.
You mentioned you like Bald Eagle. We got to see a lot more of him this season.
He was in the last season? I don't remember him. Who the hell? He was there before.
Yeah, he was there last season.
I don't remember him. I thought he was new. That's hysterical.
You know what we didn't get to see a lot of, or really any of this season, and something that they touched on last season, was that there was more kids like Elle. Remember, she ran away and she ran into that girl.
That little gang of people.
Yeah, and they didn't really touch on that. Which, now that I think about it, I'm glad they didn't, because like watching season 3, I didn't notice it until after it was over and I was, you know, preparing to do this, and I was like, oh, they didn't expand on that at all. I don't know, maybe that's something that they'll go back to.
One funny thing for me was I feel like I watched the entire season and felt, for the most part, like I was able to keep up and understood what was happening, except for the whole Russian storyline. I did not understand what was going on with the Russian storyline. I don't know at what point I missed something went over my head, something just was not connecting. Like, that was like the one sub-story, because it was like 7 or 8 of these sub-stories. That was the one that I really could not connect. Like, if someone was like, give me a recap of the Russian storyline, I'd be like, I don't fucking know.
I think the only thing I can say about that is, you know, it's 1985. It's during the height of the Cold War. So the Russians somehow probably figured out what was going on there and decided to come and do it themselves. Because it's not like they owned the facility. Like, they were actually using the mall as a front for the facility. You know, so it was definitely, what they were doing was hidden from the American government. So I think, you know, it's probably something like I said, like they found out about this other dimension and decided to get it themselves. Yeah, I mean that's probably what it was. But how about the Russian Terminator guy? Like
He was annoying as hell. I was so
he
glad
was
when he got it.
nonstop. Like, and he beat the shit out of Hopper a few times.
He was so annoying.
And that was another thing about this season I noticed. It was a lot more aggressive.
Action packed. It was like almost like watching a Jason Statham movie.
Yeah, it was a lot more action, a lot more aggressive. It was a little bolder, which is fine. But they definitely, and maybe that's part of it. You know, it's the kids are getting older and getting more exposed to that type of thing. So it's just a natural progression. So let's talk about. We're gonna kind of skim along here to the end. But I really like the whole end when they're in the mall, and they were all fighting the Mind Flayer at once. They're all throwing fireworks at it. Elle's trying to fight it. Everybody's fighting against it. Hopper is with Joyce at the lab. They're trying to stop the machine that's opening the portal.
Mm-hmm.
I just thought that was a lot of fun, like the way it was done and the way it was executed. It was a whole, just really fun sequence of events. Billy is trying to use Elle.
We haven't talked about Billy and him being basically the villain from episode 1.
Well, we're gonna talk about him now, but he was the villain for episode 1. He was possessed, if you will, by the Mind Flayer. He recruited all types of people for the Mind Flayer to take control of, and it looked like he was gonna do it with Elle as well, before Elle used the memory that she found of his mother on him, and then he turned into the hero at the last second, but was killed off.
Which was devastating. Devastating. Like, Dacre was the eye candy. Didn't care for his character too much. He was a little racist and a little bit of a dick.
And he had bad hair.
Leave his hair alone. It's 80s hair. It was good 80s hair. No,
his hair was awful.
Leave him alone. He's
actually all of their hair was awful.
Sexy lifeguard. Oh yeah, Mike and Will's hair horrendous. But yeah, not being able to see Dacre anymore is gonna be a total bummer. But I guess I'll accept it for the sake of story. But he had his moment, and I feel bad for Max.
She pretty much has nobody. But at the same time that Billy dies, Hopper is fighting the Russian Terminator
man.
in the lab, and winds up, he wins the fight. He kills the guy, but at the same time,
kind of a gross way, by the way.
Yeah, he throws him into the machine, and just like the guy gets decimated.
Isn't that actually from Terminator? Isn't there a part where somebody's face goes in? Isn't that how Arnold loses a piece of his face? He shoves him into a machine and cuts off his flesh.
Not a machine like that, but he gets rammed in the face repeatedly with something. In Terminator 2, but
I feel like that was like a little nod to Terminator, because he stuck his face in it. And lost some skin.
I think his character was probably a nod to Arnold Schwarzenegger a little bit, and. He definitely. I couldn't help but think Terminator the whole time I was watching him. So
was it T-1000?
Not the T-1000, on T2, Arnold Schwarzenegger. The
T-800. Is it 800?
The T-800.
That crazy man, the cop man, is the 800?
No, the cop is T-1000.
That's what I'm saying. He reminded me of that Russian was the T-1000 in my head. He was insane and just would not die and wouldn't go away.
But during the fight, the machine is damaged, and Hopper can't get back, so they wind up destroying it, and
with him on the ledge.
With him there, thinking, now we all think that Hopper's dead, which I thought was pretty cool. Like, I kind of like when they kill off big characters and you don't really expect it. Yeah, I don't know. Like, I thought that was it. I thought he was dead. Well, he's not dead.
I feel like you're spoiling it before you get to anything. You're just like, oh well.
Well, we all saw the scene after the credits.
I feel like it's a ruse. I feel like it's gonna be some American from season 1 or 2 that we just completely forgot about. They're gonna let us for the next year think that Hopper's alive.
There's nobody to forget because there's nobody else.
I'm not buying it. I just don't feel like they would.
We didn't actually see Hopper die, right? And we know that
it's kind of hard to watch an explosion.
Right, but we still didn't see him die. we know that the Russians were running into the facility, trying to stop them from destroying it, and Joyce and Bald Eagle ran out.
Joyce and Bald Eagle.
And then it goes back to Russia, where we see some type of prison, and they go to open a cell, and they say, no, not the American. And then they open another cell, and they bring a guy into another room, and they basically feed him to a new Demogorgon. So they got, who knows how, but they got their monster from the Upside Down. So I think Hopper's still alive, and we'll see him again. There's no reason to think that it's anybody else.
It's hopeful, but I just feel like that's too easy.
But Hopper, no, I don't. It's not easy. I mean,
it's too easy.
I mean, I think it would be cool if that was the end of the series. Fine, but it's not. We know that there's another one coming, so there's no reason to think that Hopper is dead.
You have to have a major death, and that would be amazing.
I think the major death was Billy, and I think the head fake is Hopper.
But even think about it. Like, take a step back and think about it. How the hell would he have?
Well, who knows?
Survived that? There's no way.
How does any people survive anything in Hollywood movies? How does Vin Diesel in Fast and Furious jump from one building to another in a car and nothing happens?
How does Thomas Jane jump over a great white shark?
How does Thomas Jane swim over a shark the way?
Chris, that's possible.
It's not possible.
It is possible. I've seen it done.
Anyway.
And I can do it.
But speaking of the hidden scene that we got, which we know that there's going to be another season. Should it be the last one? Should season 4 be the end?
It is the last one. They said after season 1 that they were only going to 4.
Because I kind of hope that it is, only because the kids obviously are getting older, and it's just not going to be the same if they do like season 6 and they're all 20 years old.
They would be teenagers. By season 6, they would still be teenagers.
But it won't have the same impact because they'll look like 20. They look old now.
I don't necessarily think that it wouldn't work with them as teenagers. Most heroes in movies and these types of things are teenagers anyway.
But I think that that's not what they're supposed to be in the show. We're supposed to look at them as kids. We can't look at them as kids anymore because, like you said, they're all hitting puberty. They're all getting taller, looking a lot different. So the charm of them being children is going to wear off. It might even be starting to wear off a little bit. So I think season 4, if they say it's the end, I think that that's probably a good thing. End it at 4, because by the time they do that, by the time they film it and we see it, they're going to be even older, and it might even be more awkward.
And Millie Bobby Brown would be married to Drake by then.
Well, we're not a gossip show today. We're not going to start any gossip here, but
it's not gossip, Chris. It's the truth.
But what I would like to see, and we talked about all the love letters to the classic 80s stories and to Steven Spielberg and to Stephen King, is that maybe after season 4, let some years go by, because we see everything revived, everything rebooted, everything remade. So maybe in a few years, we get kind of like a new season with them older, and it's almost like...
They're kids?
No, they're adults, like in It, They have to go back now and fight the Demogorgon again as adults. Or the Mind Flayer again, or something like that. I just think, just brainstorming, I guess, fantasy writing, if you will. I just think that might be a cool thing to do as far as the future of the show.
I could see it. But wouldn't that be wouldn't that be the exact thing that you don't want to see? That you're saying you don't want to see them older? If it's years later and intentional? I don't want to see... If it's years later and intentional, I think that's fine. I think that's different than just season 4, 5, 6, 7. I don't think that'll have the same impact. I think if you ended at 4, and then in 5 years' time, or closer to 10 years' time, you get them to agree to do one season as they're adults, and they're like, hey, we have to go back to Hawkins and finish it once and for all. I think that might be a cool thing to do. I mean, I definitely see that angle. I think it needs to end because anything beyond one more season is just not going to be believable anymore. And I think outside of monsters and the nonsense that we do see, I think it's just not rational for these same kids. One, I mean, and to point out more flaws, and I hate to be the person that's like looking at things from, you know, with a lens and a fine-tooth comb. But something I found very annoying about everything was that this monster who was like basically a big giant spider, is stomping through the whole town,
and nobody notices.
And everybody just seems to be doing their homework, doing laundry, minding their business.
At a carnival.
Everybody's at a carnival having a great time, and this siloed group of 10 are the only people that are going through this. Like, where, like, Steve's parents, no one's looking for Steve. Steve was tied up, getting beat up by Russians for like 3 days. No parents, his parents just weren't looking for him. Like, I just feel like there was no sense of urgency. Like, no one seemed to be around when the what's his name? Flayer?
Mind Flayer.
The Mind Flayer was coming down the road like a big giant bug. No one saw it. When he was at the roof of Hopper's entire pad, his condo, whatever, his cabin, not one person, like, I mean, it's just like no kind of awareness. How can this monster wreak havoc? He's at the mall destroying everything. And no one is bothered but these kids and a couple of adults. It just didn't make any sense to me.
I get what you're saying.
So it's like it almost got to a point where it was like it wasn't something I could just like ignore. Like, I'll ignore a lot of things for the sake of enjoying a concept of a TV show and a movie.
I think we're supposed to ignore that
but
that part of it.
It was too much. The thing was wreaking havoc on the entire town, and no one seemed to understand.
Not understand, but no one noticed.
Billy made half Hawkins can't be that big. Hawkins is probably a town of 1,200 max, and Billy made at least 100 of them pod people, and no one noticed.
I don't know if we.
And all of them died. Half the town is dead.
We don't know how many of them there actually were.
Because there were so many. When there was like a little mini montage scene where like when the thing called everyone back home. It was like his boy left his 10-year-old boy left his birthday party. Like, they showed like enough where it was almost like the scene in Hocus Pocus when Sarah's singing her song and calling the children. It was just like half of the town just got up in the middle, like just left their houses, stopped doing laundry, left the carnival, left birthday parties, and went to the basement to explode. Half the town is dead. Or like a nice chunk of the town, adults and kids, because there were teenagers and kids down there too, are gone, and no one is batting an eye. I just don't understand that.
No, I get it. I get what you're saying, and maybe we'll get answers to that when the next season comes along, and maybe that's why it's going to end at 4. I mean, if they said at season 1 that it would only go 4, then they probably have a plan for that. So,
and I think the most realistic thing that happened was Joyce being like, "Okay, I'm leaving. Goodbye." Like, I would have left after season 2.
Forgot to mention that.
Yeah, Joyce leaves.
She moves away, and she leaves with Elle because they think Hopper's dead.
Yeah, and so like that was probably one of the most realistic things. Like, it's like, okay, this is bullshit. I'm not dealing with this town anymore. I'm leaving. Everyone should be leaving. Mike's family should be leaving. Him and his thought mom. Everybody should be leaving.
She didn't go through with it with
So
Billy.
what? She came in every day to wear a bikini and flirt with Billy.
So would you.
No, I wouldn't.
Yes, you would.
No, I wouldn't, Chris. A classy, middle-aged woman with 3 kids and a husband.
You think that matters?
It should.
Okay, but we know it doesn't.
Well, just because you're a pervert doesn't mean
pervert.
Just because you're a pervert doesn't mean everybody else is.
I'm not a pervert.
Okay.
But everyone else is.
Okay, and that makes it okay.
I'm not saying it's okay. I'm just saying that's real life. So it doesn't matter if she's married and has 3 kids. She's obviously bored, and that's why she was attracted to Billy.
Her husband is the worst. Mike's dad is the most boring and ridiculous person, so I actually have to give her prop, because I think I would have been at the pool every day looking at Billy too, because her husband was just like Schitt's Creek.
I think Nancy's part of it was cool too, because it whenever I watch a movie or a show that deals with investigative reporters, it makes me want to be one.
Oh boy.
But anyway.
I thought Nancy was bad at like in the mall scenes, like she was like grabbing the guns. Oh, can we talk about another thing that annoyed me? Everyone was completely useless. I understand that it's a Demogorgon, or it's a whatever this animal is, Flayer, is a big scary monster, but nobody was trying to help Elle. Like, she was out here struggling nose bleeding, looking crazy, weak, and like the only time they jumped in to save her was when it was getting ready to pull her through the ceiling, and they grabbed her. But like the other million times, she like stuck her arms out and was like, "Get back, I'll do it." And like he grabbed her when Billy was choking her. Like none of them, and I get it. Like you're scared, but your friend is getting. He was like choking her to death, and like I think Mike jumped in. Was it Mike?
Yeah.
Mike jumped in. He's the only person. There's like 9 of them. Why are they there? If I was Elle, honestly, what are they there for? They helped 0. Like they helped 1 time out of like the 6 instances where she was getting her ass beat either by some type of monster or Billy. And I think it was kind of frustrating. It was like Ella's out here taking a beating for you guys. The least you could do is pick up the nearest chair, the nearest pipe, a dart, something, and help. Even if he smacks you out of the way, at least you tried. But I feel like they were just standing there 90% of the time. It was kind of annoying. It was like, just go home then. What are you here for? Like, it's just somebody extra for Elle to protect. Go home. Nancy was the only one that was pulling out the gun. Her and Jonathan and Mike that one time. And I guess Lucas contributed with his idea about the firecrackers.
Yeah.
But everybody else, useless.
I don't know. I guess it's hard to, in real life, if we were in that situation, it's hard to
it's not
say
hard.
What we did.
First of all, it's supposed to be Goonies. Goonies never say die, and they were about to let Elle die. Elle was getting choked the fuck out, and they were just standing there.
All right. Well, on that note, I gotta cut it here. So, after Tara's epic rant about people being useless,
Chris, why would I have a squad that doesn't help me? What is the point?
Tara, thank you for joining.
Thank you for having me. Always fun.
All right, so don't forget to visit Fans Perspective homepage at starsandcelebs.com. Don't forget about chud.com. Don't forget to follow us on Instagram at Fans Perspective Pod. Don't forget YouTube, where you can search for the Fans Perspective and subscribe. We'll be loading our podcasts on YouTube as well. And thank you for listening. Let us know what you thought of Season 3 of Stranger Things. Tell us what your favorite parts were, who's your favorite character, and tell us if you're as annoyed as Tara was with everybody being useless, or if you're as upset as she is with Billy being killed off. Because that was really the only thing she really cared about in Stranger Things.
Excuse me? First of all, it's not Billy. Billy's the worst. It was Dacre. Montgomery.
Dacre Montgomery.
And that's not the only thing I cared about. I love the show in general, so you can suck it.
On that note, everybody, thank you so much for joining me, and I will see you next time on The Fans Perspective.
Thank you for joining my show, everyone.